Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. The Jacobite Rebellions were a series of uprisings, rebellions, and wars that shook Britain and Scotland between the late 17th and mid-18th centuries. At their core, these conflicts were about who should rightfully rule the British throne. After the Glorious Revolution of 1688 ousted King James II, a Catholic monarch, from power, his supporters, known as Jacobites, from the Latin form of James Jacobus, sought to restore James and his heirs to the throne. This was not just a political dispute, it was a battle deeply intertwined with religion, national identity, and the future direction of Britain. The Jacobite cause resonated particularly strongly in Scotland, where many clans and communities saw the Stuart dynasty as the rightful royal family and viewed the new Protestant rulers with suspicion or outright hostility. The rebellions represented more than just attempts to reclaim a crown. They symbolized resistance to political and religious changes imposed from London, a struggle over Scotland's autonomy, and the clash between Catholicism and Protestantism. Spanning primarily from the Glorious Revolution in 1688 to the decisive defeat at Culloden in 1746, the Jacobite uprising saw a series of dramatic battles, shifting alliances, and passionate campaigns. They left a lasting mark on the culture, politics, and identity of both Scotland and Britain as a whole. Understanding the Jacobite rebellions helps reveal the complex forces that shaped modern British history, the tensions between monarchy and parliament, between Scottish tradition and British unification, and between religious faiths, making these conflicts a pivotal chapter in the story of the British Isles. James II's reign was marked by deep divisions and growing distrust, largely because of his open Catholic faith and his belief in absolute monarchy. In a predominantly Protestant England and Scotland, his attempts to promote Catholicism and bypass Parliament fueled fears that he intended to undermine Protestantism and concentrate power in his own hands. This alarmed not only religious leaders, but also many nobles and politicians who valued parliamentary authority and Protestantism as foundations of the kingdom. The tipping point came with the birth of James's son in 1688, a Catholic heir who threatened to establish a lasting Catholic dynasty. This prompted a group of influential English nobles to invite William of Orange, a Protestant Dutch prince married to James's Protestant daughter Mary, to invade England. William landed with his forces, and James, facing widespread desertions and little support, fled the country. This event, known as the Glorious Revolution, was largely bloodless but dramatically reshaped the British monarchy. Parliament declared William and Mary joint sovereigns, establishing constitutional monarchy and limiting royal power. However, not everyone accepted this change. Supporters of James II, who became known as Jacobites, refused to recognize William and Mary's legitimacy. They believed that James and his descendants were the rightful rulers by divine right and that his removal was illegal. This belief ignited the Jacobite cause, setting the stage for decades of rebellion aimed at restoring the Stuarts to the throne and reversing the political and religious changes brought by the Glorious Revolution. The Jacobites were a diverse group united by their loyalty to the Stuart line and opposition to the ruling Hanoverian monarchy. Their core supporters included many Scottish Highland clans who saw the Stuarts as the rightful kings and champions of Scottish identity and traditional clan authority. In addition, some English and Irish Catholics remained fiercely loyal to the Stuarts because they hoped a restored Catholic monarch would reverse the penal laws and religious restrictions imposed on them. For many Jacobites, the cause was as much about faith as it was about politics. Politically, Jacobite supporters rejected the legitimacy of the Glorious Revolution and the Protestant succession established afterward. They believed that kings ruled by divine right and that removing James II was unlawful. This loyalty was also deeply tied to resentment over the loss of influence and traditional privileges following the shift to parliamentary power. The Jacobite claimants themselves embodied this cause. James II, after his exile, was known as the Old Pretender, continually asserting his right to the throne from abroad. His son, James Francis Edward Stuart, inherited this claim and was recognized by Jacobites as James III of England and VIII of Scotland. Then came his charismatic grandson, Charles Edward Stuart, known as the Young Pretender, or more affectionately as Bonnie Prince Charlie, who led the most famous uprising in 1745. Each claimant represented hope for the restoration of the Stuarts and the undoing of the political and religious changes reshaping Britain. After being deposed in the Glorious Revolution, James II sought to reclaim his throne by rallying support in Ireland and Scotland, where his Catholic faith and Stuart lineage still commanded loyalty. He landed in Ireland, where he quickly gained backing from Irish Catholics eager to reverse Protestant dominance, and from Scottish Highland clans who remained steadfast Jacobites. His campaign aimed to use Ireland as a base to challenge William III's rule in Britain. One of the key moments in this first Jacobite Rising was the Battle of Culloden in 1689. The Jacobite forces, led by the charismatic Earl of Dundee, won a fierce and surprising victory against government troops. However, this triumph was marred by the death of Dundee himself, a devastating blow to Jacobite morale and leadership. Without his guidance, the movement struggled to maintain momentum and cohesion. Despite early successes, the rebellion eventually faltered. William's forces regrouped and brought superior numbers and resources to bear, pushing the Jacobites back. The lack of sustained foreign support, internal divisions among the Jacobites, and the effective military response from William's government meant the uprising could not achieve its ultimate goal. By 1690, James II's campaign had effectively collapsed, and he fled Ireland after his defeat at the Battle of the Boyne, marking the end of the first significant attempt to restore the Stuarts. Following the death of Queen Anne in 1714, the British throne passed to George I of the House of Hanover, a Protestant dynasty brought in by the Act of Settlement to ensure a Protestant succession. This transition was deeply unpopular among many Jacobites, who saw James Francis Edward Stuart, known as the Old Pretender and son of James II, as the legitimate heir. Sensing an opportunity to reclaim the throne, Jacobite supporters rallied in Scotland and parts of northern England to launch what would become the 1715 Rebellion, often called the 15. James Francis Edward Stuart made a dramatic landing in Scotland in 1715, hoping to galvanize support and inspire a broad uprising. While many Highland clans and Scottish nobles joined his cause, the movement lacked the unified leadership and widespread backing needed for decisive victory. The rebellion featured several key clashes, most notably the Battle of Sheriffmuir in Scotland and the Battle of Preston in England. Sheriffmuir was indecisive, with neither side achieving a clear victory, while the defeat at Preston marked a major setback as government forces captured a large Jacobite contingent. Several factors contributed to the rebellion's failure. The Jacobites struggled with poor coordination and limited resources, while George III's government responded swiftly with military force and legal measures to suppress the uprising. Additionally, the expected widespread support from English Jacobites and foreign allies did not materialize to the extent needed. After months of fighting and dwindling momentum, the rebellion collapsed, forcing James Francis Edward Stuart to flee back to France. The consequences were severe. Many Jacobite leaders were executed or imprisoned, and the government tightened control over Scotland, seeking to prevent future rebellions. Although the uprising failed, it reignited the Jacobite cause and set the stage for the more famous 1745 rebellion led by James's son, Charles Edward Stuart. The events of 1715 revealed both the persistent loyalty to the Stuarts and the formidable challenges they faced in challenging the established Hanoverian order. In 1745, Charles Edward Stuart, famously known as Bonnie Prince Charlie, made a dramatic and daring landing on the shores of Scotland, reigniting the Jacobite cause with a surge of youthful energy and charisma. His arrival galvanized many Highland clans and supporters, who were eager to restore the Stuarts to the throne, sparking a wave of enthusiasm that rapidly grew into a formidable uprising. The Jacobites quickly seized Edinburgh, the Scottish capital, and won a stunning victory at the Battle of Prestonpans, demonstrating their strength and rallying more recruits to their banner. Emboldened by their early successes, the Jacobite army embarked on a bold march into England, advancing as far south as Derby, just over 100 miles from London. This was the deepest penetration into England by the Jacobites, raising alarm throughout the country and threatening the Hanoverian government's hold on the throne. However, despite this promising advance, the Jacobite leadership faced a critical dilemma. Expected English support and uprisings failed to materialize, and concerns over stretched supply lines, the threat of large government forces gathering, and dwindling reinforcements forced them to reconsider. The decision to turn back at Derby marked a turning point. The retreat sapped morale and momentum, allowing government troops to regroup and mount a determined counteroffensive. Without broad English support and facing increasing military pressure, the Jacobite forces began to falter. This loss of momentum culminated in their ultimate defeat at the Battle of Culloden in 1746, ending the rebellion and crushing the hopes of the Stuart restoration. The 45 remains one of the most dramatic and romanticized chapters in British history, embodying both the passion of the Jacobite cause and the harsh realities that led to its downfall. The Battle of Culloden in 1746 was the final, decisive confrontation of the Jacobite Rebellion of 1745, marking the tragic end of the Stuart cause. Fought on a bleak, windswept moor near Inverness, the battle saw the Jacobite forces, led by Charles Edward Stuart, face the well-trained and better-equipped government army commanded by the Duke of Cumberland, son of King George II. Despite their fierce determination and the high stakes, the Jacobites were overwhelmingly outmatched. The government troops used superior artillery and disciplined infantry tactics, devastating the Jacobite ranks in a brutal and swift engagement lasting less than an hour. The defeat was catastrophic for the Jacobites. Thousands were killed or wounded, and the survivors were hunted relentlessly in the aftermath. The Duke of Cumberland earned the harsh nickname Butcher Cumberland for the ruthless repression that followed. The government cracked down severely on the Highlands, banning traditional clan culture, disarming the population, and enforcing laws designed to destroy the social and military power of the clans that had supported the rebellion. This repression included executions, imprisonments, and forced relocations, aiming to erase the Jacobite threat once and for all. Culloden effectively ended any realistic hope of restoring the Stuart monarchy and marked a turning point in British history. The Highlands were transformed socially and politically, integrated more firmly into the British state. The battle's legacy is remembered as both a symbol of noble resistance and a harsh warning of the consequences of rebellion. The defeat at Culloden marked the definitive end of the Jacobite cause as a serious military threat to the British throne. After 1746, the Stuart efforts to reclaim the crown effectively ceased, and the Hanoverian dynasty solidified its control over Britain. The government wasted no time in imposing strict measures designed to pacify and assimilate the Highlands, which had been the backbone of Jacobite support. Laws banned traditional Highland dress, including tartans and kilts, disarmed the clans, and dismantled their hereditary power structures. These policies aimed to suppress rebellion by erasing much of the distinct Highland culture and integrating the region more tightly into the British state. Despite this repression, the Jacobite cause lived on in cultural memory, becoming deeply romanticized over time. Bonnie Prince Charlie emerged as a legendary figure, a symbol of youthful bravery, lost causes, and Scottish pride. The Highlands and their traditions were idealized in literature, art, and music, inspiring works by poets, novelists, and composers that celebrate the courage and tragic fate of the Jacobites. This romantic image often contrasts sharply with the harsh realities faced during and after the rebellions. Today, Jacobitism continues to influence popular culture, from historical novels and films to folk music and annual commemorations. It remains a powerful symbol of Scottish identity and resistance, reflecting a complex legacy of loyalty, rebellion, and cultural survival that shaped Britain's history in profound ways. The Jacobite rebellions continue to hold deep significance because they helped shape modern Scottish identity and fueled early expressions of nationalism. For many Scots, especially in the Highlands, the Jacobite cause symbolizes a fierce loyalty to tradition, resistance against imposed authority, and a struggle to preserve their unique culture. The romantic image of Bonnie Prince Charlie and the clans evokes pride and a sense of historical distinctiveness that still resonates in Scotland's cultural and political conversations today. Beyond their regional impact, the rebellions offer valuable lessons about the dangers and complexities of religious and political conflict. They highlight how deeply intertwined faith and power were in shaping loyalties and divisions during this era. Catholicism versus Protestantism, divine right monarchy versus parliamentary rule. The Jacobite uprisings reveal how competing visions of legitimacy and governance can fracture societies and how those conflicts can have long-lasting consequences on social order and national unity. At the same time, the popular Jacobite myth often romanticizes the rebellions, focusing on heroic narratives and noble sacrifice while glossing over the harsher realities of defeat, repression, and internal divisions. Understanding the true historical context helps separate fact from legend, showing the rebellions not just as gallant adventures, but as complex political struggles with profound and sometimes painful impacts on British history. This balanced view enriches how we remember the Jacobites and appreciate their lasting legacy. The Jacobite Rebellions, spanning from the late 17th to mid-18th centuries, were pivotal moments that reshaped the political, cultural, and social landscape of Britain. From the initial attempts to restore James II and his heirs to the dramatic uprising led by Bonnie Prince Charlie, these rebellions highlighted deep divisions over monarchy, religion, and national identity. Though ultimately unsuccessful militarily, they left an enduring legacy, transforming Scottish identity, inspiring cultural memory, and influencing government policies that shaped the future of the Highlands and Britain as a whole. Their story reminds us how history is never just about battles or politics, but about the people, cultures, and ideas that endure long after the fighting ends. The Jacobite cause, with all its complexities and contradictions, continues to captivate imaginations and offer lessons on loyalty, conflict, and change. If you found this deep dive into the Jacobite rebellions fascinating, be sure to subscribe for more insightful history content that brings the past to life.